Fourth grade lesson 10.1 is lines, rays, and angles. We are heading into geometry. Our essential question is, how can you identify and draw points, lines, line segments, rays, and angles? This lesson is all about the vocabulary involved with geometry, or some of the vocabulary involved. Everyday things can model geometric figures. For example, the period at the end of the sentence models a point right there. A solid painted stripe in the middle of a straight road models a line. We have a sign that models a triangle, signs on the street that models rectangles. So everyday things can model geometric shapes or items. Terms and definition, here's some vocabulary that we're going to be working on in this lesson, what it is and how it's stated and how you write it. So there's some abbreviated ways to write it so it doesn't have to be a real long thing. A point is an exact location in space. Point there, there's a point there. It's one specific spot. And they've named this particular spot, this particular point A. Read it as point A, point A. And we would write it as point A. And the very edge of the pencil is the point, right? A line is a straight path of points that continues without end in both directions. So a line, an example would be a road. You'll notice on a line, this is read as line BC because there's the point B on it and point C on it, line BC. You could also read it backwards, doesn't matter. Line CB, same thing. And it's written as a line at the top of it with the arrows on the end. I'll talk about that in a minute. BC, and the line at the top of it with the arrows on it, CB. We just call it a line. If it has arrows on the end, that signifies that this line goes on and on forever this way and on forever that way, okay? And so we would call that line BC or line CB. If it didn't have, let's pretend, actually the next one has that. We'll go to the next one. Erase, I didn't mean to mark that. Okay, we'll go to the next one. A line segment, I was just about to explain that with in regards to the arrows on the end going on and on forever. If it didn't have the arrows going on and on forever, we call that a line segment. A segment or a part of the line is a part of a line between two endpoints. So it's like cutting off the arrows onto this and saying, we're only talking about the in-between here. We're only talking about this part. Nothing goes on and on this way and nothing goes on and on that way. That's a line segment. Segment means like a portion of or a part of. So that's a line segment. And we would call this line segment DE, written this way. Notice no arrows at the top like we had up here. Or line segment ED, same. Notice no arrows on the top. If there's no arrows on that line, it's a line segment. If there's arrows on that line, it's a line. That's the only difference. So line segment DE, line segment ED. Finally, a ray is a part of a line that has one end point, like that, and continues without end in one direction. The arrow signifies that it goes on and on that way. Not this way. No arrow there to signify that. On and on this way. So we have ray FG. And on a ray, notice these went either direction, and that was fine. But on a ray, we started our end point, and then we go off to our on and on forever side, so FG. And that can be signified with this ray symbol at the top, the line with the arrow on one side only, FG. So those are some vocabulary. A point, a line, BC, CB is a line, both arrows on both sides. A line segment does not have the arrows on both sides, and a ray has the arrow on one side. We want to draw and label line segment JK. Okay, I'll use this as my line here. It's a line segment, so it ends on one side, we'll call that J, and it ends on the other side, we'll call that K. And there I am with line segment JK. Is there another way to name JK? There is. Remember, with line segment, it didn't really matter which order we went in. With the ray, it does, but with the line segment, it doesn't. So we can say, instead of JK, we can say KJ, line segment. KJ is another way we can label that. All right, here is a few more vocabulary pieces for geometry. We'll talk about angles. And an angle is formed by two rays or line segments that have the same endpoint here. The shared endpoint is called the vertex. Vertex is that word there. And highlight vertex if you can underline or circle or something, that word vertex. That's a good vocabulary word that you want to have in your vocabulary. We have array QP and we have QR, array QR, that are joined together at Q, and they make an angle together. So we would call this either angle PQR, or we could call this angle RQP. We could also just call this angle Q. But notice in here, Q was at the middle or by itself. The vertex, the middle, the place where they meet, is always in the middle when you name the angle, if you're using all of its letters, PQR or RQP, or you just name it angle Q, whatever the vertex is. Okay? We would write it like this, angle PQR. That little symbol means angle, and you'll sometimes see it written like this too. Some people write it like that. They use this little thingy there across the angle. I've seen it both ways, so I just want to point that out in case you happen to see it that way. But a lot of times you'll just see this little angle symbol. So angle PQR is how you say it, or angle RQP, or angle Q. There's different types of angles too. You can name an angle by the vertex. When you name an angle using 3 points, the vertex is always the point in the middle, is what I mentioned. Angles are classified or grouped by the size of the opening between the rays, the part in between here. And we'll start with a right angle. It forms a square corner. If this were a square, you could see it's all right up and down. I always have you sit on the ground and sit straight up and stretch your arms straight up so your body can feel what a right angle feels like. Right angle is straight up and down. You'll usually see this little box here saying, hey, if this continued, it would form a box, and that's a 90-degree angle. So anytime you see this little boxy thing there, you know it's a right angle, which is 90 degrees. We'll talk more about degrees later. A straight angle forms a line. So this is the angle point. This is where the two rays meet, and one side goes out this way and one side goes out that way. If you can imagine, that's your midpoint of your body, and your legs go out that way, and your body goes out this way, and your head goes out this way. That's laying straight down on the ground. You are a straight angle laying straight on the ground. Right angle sitting straight up, and a straight angle laying straight down on the ground. An acute angle is less than a right angle, less than 90 degrees. It's acute and small. That's how I remember it. It's acute and small angle. So it's just leaning forward. So imagine yourself there, your legs, and you're sitting up. You were a right angle, now you've leaned forward. And there's a little angle between your body and your legs. A cute little angle. And an obtuse angle is greater than a right angle, but less than a straight angle. You're not laying straight down. You're also not sitting straight up. You're leaning back. And if you were to do that and sit your legs on the ground here and lean your body back, you would find yourself start shaking. That really works those muscles in your abdominal section, your stomach section. You'll start shaking a little bit because holding that position is hard to do. So this is an obtuse angle. So we'll classify an angle. To classify an angle, you can compare it to a right angle. And if we fold this piece of paper, we're going to end up with a right angle here. And we can make a right angle by using the sheet of paper, fold the paper twice evenly to model a right angle, and use the right angle to classify the angles below. So right angle is this. If it's smaller than a right angle, it's acute. If it's larger than a right angle, it's obtuse. So if we put that paper up against here, up against this angle, against our vertex, we can see, oh, look at there, it's leaning back more. It's more than a right angle. Okay, if it's more than a right angle, it's obtuse. And it's not laying flat, is it? So if this were your legs and this were your body, you're shaking, right? That's hard on your muscles in your stomach. So that is an obtuse angle, okay? Now this angle's kind of turned around, so if I were to put my paper on there, it's going to look like this. My paper's going to look something like that, okay? And you can see, let's pretend we're upside down on the ceiling. There's your legs, and there's your body. You are leaning forward. If you were sitting straight up, it would be this way, right? You're leaning forward, and it's a very small angle. It's an acute angle. So here we had obtuse for this one, and here we have acute. It's smaller than a right angle. Right here, let's go ahead and put our paper down and see what that looks like. We'd have a paper here, and we'd have a paper here. And notice this one is just a little bit smaller than the straight up and down. If these were my legs and this was my body, I'm leaning forward just a little bit, not sitting straight up and down, right? So I'm smaller than a right angle, just barely. And if I'm just barely smaller, I'm still acute angle. And on this last one, if I put my paper here, notice I'm right there. I'm perfectly on with that angle. And that is a right angle. You'll get used to these with practice. It's just learning that vocabulary is all we're doing. This first question wants us to draw and label line segment AB and the space at the right. Well, first I'm going to draw a line segment with a point on each side because it's a segment. It does not go on forever on either side. And I'm going to put A, B, like that. It is a line segment because there were no arrows on either side of that. They want me to draw and label an example of each figure. We have line XY. I know it's a line and not a line segment because there's an arrow on both sides. So when I draw that, I'm going to put the arrows on both sides to show that it continues on and on this way forever and on this way forever. I don't want to draw it on and on forever. I don't have enough paper. I'm just going to draw it that way. Then I'm going to put a point here for X and a point here for Y, and that is line XY, also known as line YX. They want me to draw an obtuse angle K. All right, I can do that. So an angle is made up of a ray that goes out one way. We know that the vertex is going to be K, and it goes on and on forever. I'm going to give a point, let's say L. Okay. I need it to be obtuse, and if you remember, that's the one that's leaning back. That's the one that's, if this is a right angle and I'm sitting straight up and down, I need to lean back. So I want it to lean back, but not lay all the way flat because that's too comfortable for an obtuse angle. All right, and I'm going to call that J. So I have angle JKL or angle LKJ or simply angle K. You can name it any of those. I'm doing a right angle CDE, where D is the vertex. Okay, right angle. That is a ray that goes out this way. I'm going to call this D because that's the vertex. I'll call this point E. And I need it to go straight up and down. Oops, that's leaning back. Come on, Mrs. Sanchez, get it right. There we go. And I'll call that C. And now I have a right angle where it's sitting straight up and down, CDE, or right angle EDC, or just angle D. They want me to name a line segment in here. There's several line segments here, right? There's line segment TU, or line segment UT, or UW, or WU, or TV, or VT, or VW, or WV. I like TV. I'm going to go ahead and use that one. Line segment TV. Now they want me to name a right angle. Well, remember, this little box indicates that this is a 90-degree angle sitting straight up and down. If that's your legs on the ceiling, then you're sitting straight up. You're pointing straight down to the floor, perpendicular like that. So I can call this angle TUW. I can call this angle WUT, or I can simply call that angle U. Angle U. So this lesson's just going to give you practice on these things. Feel free to refer back to your book to look at all the definitions of things and the examples of things to help you with this. And let me know if you need extra help.